It has been said that mermaids symbolize life and fertility within the ocean. Many Zimbabwean indigenes have had this traditional belief passed down from generation to generation. However, they learned something else about mermaids one morning in the middle of 2000, when one of the districts in Zimbabwe woke up to the news of two men drowning while trying to chase or catch a mermaid. Villagers in Manduro Gezi district, a district of the province Mashonaland, west in Zimbabwe, woke up on the morning of June 2000 to the news that two men had drowned in a local dam. What was more shocking to the villagers was the cause of their death, which was drowning. Though people had been reported to drown during the rainy seasons, it was surprising the men drowned while trying to catch or chase a mermaid. Manduro Gezi is a vast district that boasts scrubland, farmland, and sandveld stretching from south of Harare around Manyam River to the Mazuves River around 200 kilometers away. There was a dam, which was part of the agricultural infrastructure. Former President Robert Mugabe's government built it in the mid-1990s. The dam was constructed in an undiluted shrub-filled vley in the rear course of the Nyamakando, a river that started on a wetland some kilometers upstream. Nyamakando swells into the Mupra River, which pours into the Sanyati River, a Zambezi tributary. Setting the dam at the boulder-strewn edges of the river was quite unusual. Locals believe the koppies and their environment are the abode of spirits, mythical creatures, and ancestors. It was even said that if one gets closer to the dam, one can hear the sound of the departed ancestors' favorite music mysteriously playing from the rock crags underneath it. However, many people avoided coming close to the dam during the day, even though the mermaids were not the initial inhabitants of the dam. After the dam was constructed, many villagers claimed to have seen a whirlwind in the distance, while walking on the earthen wall, holding the water. It was always a towering and narrow whirlwind, moving towards the lake while attempting to reach the lower stratosphere. One of the villagers claimed that when she experienced this, she stopped to examine the situation, looking at the approaching whirlwind. She held her breath at first with interest. However, her interest turned into increasing trepidation. By then, the column of air had reached the middle of the dam with a splash of water, as if a massive boulder had been thrown into the dam, creating a ripple of waves. An older woman was doing her laundry when she saw the whole incident. She sagely concluded that a mermaid had come to live in the dam. Now, the dam in the district was like the other rivers, which didn't entirely set people at ease. Strange things started happening with mermaids, the fantastical half-woman, half-fish creature thought to habituate the dam. Sometimes in the morning, women would head to the dam to do their laundry, only to find the water muddled and left with their laundry undone. Another scenario occurred one day as dusk was approaching. A young man came home only to discover that his mother had not prepared his favorite meal. So, balking on what he considered unappetizing fare, he collected his fishing rod and trotted to the dam, with his dog running after its master. He settled down on the rocks that jutted into the dam and began fishing, with his dog sitting near and watching him. Suddenly, his dog started barking, convulsed, and jumped into the dam. The dog momentarily disappeared into the dam, and he could not see anything. The young man jumped up in fright and fled, leaving the fish he had caught on the rocks and never setting foot near the dam again. According to the elders, it was a warning because mermaids are said to hate dogs. There was also the incident of a power-hungry, fully fledged cleric who led his congregants on the wild mermaid chase early one morning, which led to the deaths of two people. The incident happened at an ambiguous time, neither morning nor night, when the prophet gathered his church members and led them in songs and prayers. His mission was to chase mermaids that stopped the congregants from praying. The cleric had his younger brother and another member with him that day. He led them to the dam wall, holding shards of clay pots with red cloth tied to them, since it is believed that mermaids hate the red color. His mission was to place the shards of clay pots with red cloth where the mermaid was believed to live. They met with the mermaid as they made their way to the dam wall. At that moment, the prophet felt that his legs were weak. It was like getting electric currents running through his legs. But the mythical creature touched his legs, and the prophet regained his composure immediately. Facing those behind him, the mermaid told them to leave because there was danger in the place. However, the prophet commanded his two followers to continue singing and praying. About 8 hours later, the village gathered around the dam by noon, with the news of the men disappearing. The villagers did all that they could, but the men were gone. They even invited a woman who was reputed to have a mermaid spirit, but she couldn't help them. Divers were engaged but came out of the dam, claiming no one was there. Nothing could also be done when 2 secondary school students were discovered drowned on February 19, 2017, at a dam near Gokwe town, a Midlands province in Zimbabwe. The boys were herding cattle when they saw the mermaid at the dam on that fateful day. Another friend of the boys who was with them was shocked to see the boys jumping into the dam and attempting to grab the mermaid, since they believed it was a big fish. However, the mermaid pulled them into the river, and no one could find them again. Before the February incident, there had been many sightings of the mermaid basking on the bank of the dam. Apart from the schoolboys, there was an eerie similar event where 2 other boys were killed at the same dam. The community performed some rituals to calm down the water spirits, just as the rituals were performed before a government water drainage project could be done. It was shocking when the Water Resources Minister, Samsepepa Nkomo, came before a Senate committee that mermaids have been hounding government workers off the dam sites in Gokwe, Manicaland, and Mutare. Nkomo claimed that workers he sent to work on the construction sites to install water pumps had dumped the project and vowed never to return to the sites because of the mythical water creatures. Added to the minister's stunning revelations were several sensational stories that Zimbabweans revealed over the past years about supernatural manifestations in their various communities. The minister informed the Senate committee that traditional chiefs would perform rituals to exorcise mermaids who were considered to inhabit reservoirs in Mutare and Gokwe, where workers were afraid to tread. The minister told the committee that he employed foreign personnel to work on the construction of the Osborne Dam, since they had not been exposed to the mermaid's reports. However, the same thing happened again because the foreigners returned and were alleged to have seen suspicious creatures. Nkomo explained that workers have reported missing or disappeared mysteriously, while the legendary creatures have chased away some. Finally, the traditionalists were sought. The mermaid exorcising rituals were performed, and construction at the dam resumed shortly afterwards. As an opinion, Nkomo offered a theory about the existence of mermaids at the construction sites. He claimed that unusual reservoir pressures could create hazardous currents and turn to illusions. A sanction underneath the reservoir could create a hole, and water could swirl violently, so much so that people may not come out if they fall in, even with an oxygen mask. Contrary to his opinion, one could not throw away why the divers vowed never to go back down when they returned to the water's surface after being sent to investigate the cause of blockages in the pumps. As a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, Minister Nkomo did not believe in mermaids. However, the community that lived in the construction area did. For thousands of years, tales of mermaids have been cited across Zimbabwe, and more tales continue circulating in the country and worldwide. These tales beg the question: do mermaids exist? It is essential to look into Zimbabwe's folklore, which believes in the existence of mermaids and their supernatural power. Many people have ascribed a bad reputation to the mythical creatures, since they are believed to be responsible for kidnapping, torture, and even murder. However, some traditional healers can cast out the mermaids, as they did after the government attempted to install pumps for irrigation at a dam in Mutare. But there are some good parts about mermaids, and someone who could give a vivid account is Justice Manyonga. According to him, mermaids made him what he is today. People around where he lived know Manyonga as someone who not only survived being kidnapped by mermaids, but mermaids also tutored him for 2 years. He attended the mermaid school and became a traditional healer under their tutelage. In Manyonga's belief, a mermaid is a mysterious creature, and he can discern its color or complexion. A mermaid can be an Arab or a white individual. However, their extended, meters-long hair is a visible distinguishing factor. Manyonga claimed that when mermaids take you to their abode, you will live like them, including wearing something that conceals your feet and eating what they eat, like fish, rice, and chicken only. On the first day of your arrival in the water, your meal will consist of sorghum or millet and 2 silverfish. These are rotten fish, but you are ordered to eat them. If you show any sign of disgust, your host will be angry with your ancestors, which could lead to death for you. While Manyonga's perspective seems incredible, it still makes me wonder whether mermaids are real. But if one thing has fascinated humanity for centuries, it is the belief that mermaids could be real. Explorers, scientists, divers, and other prominent figures have claimed to have seen mermaids with their own eyes. The famous scientist Pliny the Elder, who lived in the 1st century, wrote several accounts in natural history about a type of mermaid. Pliny described what he saw as women with scaly, rough bodies similar to fish. They were sitting on dolphins or other ocean creatures. He also narrated the account of a woman spotted in the Gulf of Cadiz who would climb on the decks of ships at night. Due to her weight, any spot she sat in would instantly begin to sink. He described ships getting underwater if the mermaid sat there long enough. But the Talmud, the ancient Jewish book of law and legend written by Shlomo Yitzhaki between 1040 and 1105, added to what Pliny said. There are fish in the sea with which half is in the form of man and half in the form of a fish, called soren in Old French. Speculum Regale, a famous mid-13th century book, described a mermaid washed ashore on the coast of Greenland. Like a woman as far down as her waist, long hands and soft hair, the neck and head in all respects like those of a human being. The hands seemed to be long, and the fingers not to be pointed, but united into a web, like that on the feet of water birds. From the waist downwards, this monster resembles a fish, with scales, tail, and fins. One of the most shocking accounts of mermaid sightings was what happened in the city of Kampen, Netherlands, in 1403. There was a crack in a dike that opened to the sea, resulting in massive water flooding the river. The locals set to work to resolve the issue. After repairing it, the locals saw a mermaid swimming nearby. At first they were scared. However, the mermaid did not bother anyone and kept swimming. Later, the villagers captured the mermaid, and it transformed into a human being with 2 legs. She could not speak, but they forced her to join their society. The mermaid attempted to jump back into the river, but someone was always there to stop her. Then, Christopher Columbus's journal entry about seeing 3 mermaids while sailing near the Dominican Republic on January 9, 1493, was significant. Columbus wrote, "They were not as beautiful as they are painted, although to some extent they have a human appearance in the face." Many theories believed there was a chance that what Christopher Columbus saw were manatees, but I beg to differ. We are talking about a skilled sailor with several years of experience. Could someone like Christopher Columbus mistake manatees for mermaids? It was the same experience for Thomas Reynold, a farmer who spotted a mermaid off the coast of Wales near Pendine in 1603. Thomas called others over to the spot, and they watched the mermaid for 3 hours. Like Christopher Columbus, Henry Hudson, a famous English explorer who sailed all over the world, wrote in his journal in 1608, "This morning, one of our company, looking overboard, saw a mermaid, and calling up some of the company to see her, one more came by, and by that tune, she was come close to the ship's side, looking earnestly on the men. A little after, a sea came and overturned her. From the navel upward, her back and breasts were like a woman's, as they say that saw her. Her body as big as one of us, her skin was very white, and long hair hanging down behind of color black. In her going down, they saw her tail, which was like the tail of a porpoise, and speckled like a mackerel." Many people know about the famous story of Pocahontas and John Smith, which dates back to 1614. However, Captain John Smith also saw a mermaid while sailing off the coast of Massachusetts. Smith wrote, "The upper part of her body perfectly resembled that of a woman, and she was swimming about with all possible grace near the shore. It had large eyes, rather too round, a finely shaped nose, a little too short, well-formed ears, rather too long, and her long green hair imparted to her an original character, by no means unattractive." From Governor Van Battenberg of the island of Berbice in the Caribbean, who gave an account and description of their mermaids in 1801, to a group sighting of mermaids off the coast of West Scotland in the summer of 1814, and the more prominent 1943 mermaid sighting by Japanese soldiers on the shores of K Islands in Indonesia, they all have one thing in common. They saw mermaids, solidifying no reason why anyone should question these significant veracities. Yet despite all this incredible evidence, it is safe to say no proof of aquatic humanoids has ever been found. There is no evidence that mermaids exist outside folklore. The maritime culture has chronicled these legendary sea creatures since time immemorial. Even Homer, the great ancient Greek epic poet, wrote about them in the Odyssey. The ancient Far East believed powerful sea dragons took mermaids as wives and engaged them as loyal messengers between emperors on land and their spouses. Australia's Aboriginal indigenes had a unique name for mermaids through their peculiar, mesmerizing songs. But how did the human folks come about the belief in mermaids? I think the dawn of our species originated mermaids' beliefs. Some 30,000 years ago, the late Paleolithic period had magical female figures in their cave paintings. Modern humans started exploring the seas after gaining dominion over the land during this period. Apart from mermaids, the mythology of those periods was filled with chimeras and half-human creatures. With various encounters and all the history surrounding mermaids, the question once again arises, are mermaids real? This topic became more interesting to me when the National Ocean Service claimed on June 27, 2012, that mermaids don't exist. This announcement seemed odd to many people, especially mermaid adherents. However, this is a government agency that focuses on natural ocean phenomena. What I found pretty interesting about this declaration is that it coincided with the release a month earlier of a video titled "Mermaids: The Body Found" by Animal Planet. Animal Planet fooled millions with this documentary, featuring scientists' encounters with a real mermaid. People were sucked into the program and believed everything they saw. However, the show ended in a blink and you miss it moment with a disclaimer implying that the whole special was a hoax. People took the show so seriously that they referred to it as a claim that they had seen a mermaid. After looking at Animal Planet's docudrama, I could see the combination of scripted interviews with actors and abominable CGI in play. But I don't blame them, because people love mermaids and their stories. The show was so successful that they produced another fictional docudrama for Shark Week, Megalodon. The whole point is that mermaids don't exist and can't even be found to exist physically. According to the US Coast Guard, it takes waters much above 70 degrees to maintain an individual, especially a lean one, for a prolonged period in the water without dying. This implies that mermaids, especially Disney's skinny types, could freeze to death. Inevitably, a human-like body form cannot survive a long time in the water. Since some oceans can be above 70 degrees, the bottom of the open sea would be too cold for mermaids, as that is where they would want to live. The human line of evolution is reasonably well mapped. Before developing hominids, the evolutionary tree between humans and fish was so unimaginable that the initial marsupial mammals emerged during the Jurassic period, dating back to 173 million years ago. Ultimately, the idea of a human and fish breeding to produce virile, viable offspring is ridiculous. This indicates that mermaids would have gone extinct if they had existed. Talking about reproducing or going extinct, how do mermaids reproduce? I thought about two options for this question. The first option is to go the human way, through the mammalian internal fertilization style. The second option is to know whether mammals can lay eggs. Everyone knows this is impossible. The monotremes of the class Mammalia, like the platypus and echidna, are the only mammals that produce eggs. Besides, these guys have no resemblance to humans, have no teeth, and would make a poor excuse for a mermaid. Going by the digestive processes of humans, which are quite different from those of fish, mermaids would be constipated. Mammals utilize complex digestive tracts to digest food, producing solid water and urine, a sterile byproduct of salts, waste, water, and proteins. However, fish kidneys produce ammonia, which they expel through their gills. As for digestive processes, fish have simple intestines, unlike humans, who have small and large intestines. If mermaids truly existed, they would have changed the face of science with more exposure to them. The scientific world would study them endlessly. If mermaids existed, the world would not only know about them, but many people would also see them, feel them, and touch them. Despite the lack of strong scientific evidence indicating that mermaids are underwater, many Zimbabwean indigenous people and millions worldwide continue to believe that mermaids are real. For them, mermaids have turned to their ways of reconciling the unknown with something as large and encompassing as the oceans.